Hello to you, friends. This is Dhamma on Air number 36, recorded on the 16th September 2016 on Vinara Puja Day. Vinara Puja Day celebrates the ordination of the Buddhist foster mother, Queen Mahamaya's sister. Queen Mahamaya, as all Buddhist mothers do, die from foster fever at the 7th day after their birth. And then Queen Mahamaya's sister, Majapati, she took over this child. And she later wished to ordain, very sincerely, and got permission to ordain, and thereby established the Bhikkhuni Sangha on this very Vinara Puja Day, the full moon day of September. There are 4 questions, and then there are some monkey business with my animal friends from the back garden, my primate neighbors and very good friends. But first, the normal intro. Namo Tasso Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. We're indoor today because it's a little windy outside. But I recorded these langur monkeys, purple-faced leaf monkeys, leaf-eating monkeys, some days ago. And they come right here. This is the back garden of Cyprus Hermitage. It's in a habitat called montane cloud forest, wet jungle. And there, up on the hillside, my best friends live. The langurs, a very gentle primate. This is a family of 2 females, one of these sitting in the upright corner, and a teenager, a leading male, and then 2 children. This is one of the children. You see, large tail, very heavy fur, because it's cold here at night. They are called leaf-eating monkeys because they eat the leaves, the young tender leaves of these trees. They get up and become active around 10:30 when the sun starts shining, and then they jump around and play all day long. And as you see, they're very tender with each other, very kind. The grown-ups, they will stare down at me. This is one of the females, one of the 2 females, sitting at right, and then the male sitting to the left. And she's looking down at me. And the kids are also looking down at me, photographing them. So they spend most of their day eating a little bit of leaves and then looking down at the society. Among those, the other primate in their company, namely the forest monk. And he's very interesting. He makes funny sounds. But then also you can fight. Now in a while you will hear the territorial roar of the male. And he will signal to me that this is his territory. I should not come and take his females, encroach on his territory, because he's the boss there. There you go. I'm the boss. See me, I can jump. And then he makes some terrible jumps, very high. Very skillful. A salto mortale, a deadly jump, to impress me and to impress his family. And as you see, they are duly impressed. Now you see the jump from his head. See there, shook from one tree down to the next. 10-15 meters free fall. Whoa. Impressive. So that's the closest they come to fight, is to jump from a high place and show that they are not afraid. So he's coming back to the same tree. See the two youngsters, the two recently born children of the two females. They are buzzing around all the time, apparently having a lot of fun. While the grown-ups, for the most case, are stoic and very calm. They're rarely seen on the ground. And if they're seen on the ground, they will run for a tree. So the natural state is to stay up in a tree, like a true monkey. If they fall down, they don't hurt themselves. They are immediately up in the tree again. So they fall down several times. You will see that also, even from high places. They don't break bones. They grab something. And then these white whiskers, scratching themselves in the neck with a leg. White beard or whiskers is characteristic of this langur family of monkeys. It's an endangered species because the habitat is shrinking, because humans are cutting down the trees. The trees produce oxygen, which the humans and the monkeys need. So we cannot cut down all the trees for no good reason. We have to think about that. The monkeys are thinking about that too. Here you see they are leaf eating, strictly vegetarian. This is the male, the father. Gobbling up some leaves. Their face is purplish black, and so also is the hand and feet. And that is why they are called purple-faced, leaf-eating monkeys, or langurs. There are 5 different species here. This is the wet-zone monkey species of them, which is the most rare, most difficult to see. But they are hanging around here in my back garden and chilling out, each in their own way. That's the way they sleep, because it's quite chilly up here. They put hand and feet together, and then they sit leaning up against each other. So they sleep sitting up, with hands and feet together, like that. Here again the male, sitting in his favorite place, looking down, what's going on. The tree is growing on a vertical cliff face, so the leopard cannot come up, because he cannot climb down the vertical cliff face behind the bamboo brush there. Or it's very difficult for him. They will hear him before he can get to the youngsters, and then they will quickly escape. So that's why they hang out there, on a vertical cliff face, high up in a tree. Shoop, falling down, no problem, up again. And father is calming, showing his belly, These are my friends. I kind of love them because they are so funny to watch. May all beings become equally happy thereby. Thank you. Okay, so much about the monkey business. Let's go to the questions. Question number 115. Venerable Monk, are astrology and horoscopes useless and detrimental, karmically speaking? Are astrology and horoscopes useless? Yes, I would say so. Because why? There is correlation between everything, but this correlation can be very weak. And so also with our lives and the planets going around, there's no state in the universe that can be fully separable from any other state. So there is correlations. So far, so good. But they are so weak that interpreting them is very, very difficult, close to impossible. So you often make wrong predictions from these very, very weak correlations. Then there's a second issue of those who make the correlations today, astrologers today, they for 98% of cases are either fraudulent or amateurs. And this means that there are 98% chance of taking the wrong decision if you take the decision based on horoscopes or on astrology. And that's too big error mark, and that's worse than random. So I would say useless, yes. One should give up this reading horoscopes and astrology. Are astrology and horoscopes detrimental here and now? Yes, I would also say so. Just imagine if a king or a government official, they start taking decisions based on horoscopes and astrologers. Then they will be criticized for that. And same thing with if professionals such as doctors, lawyers, judges, other kind of professionals, they start taking decisions based on horoscopes. Or economists, for example, bankers, they start taking decisions based on horoscopes and astrology. They will also be rightly criticized. And they will quickly be put out of business, simply, because the public will not accept such a high error rate as those who run their business based on astrology. So it is detrimental here and now, definitely so. These people who base their decisions based on astrology and horoscopes, they are not respected. And people will seek away from them, sensible people, based on rational decisions. Are astrology and horoscopes detrimental karmically for one's future? Yes, I would say also so. Why so? Because if you rely on horoscopes and soothsaying and signs and so on, and the moon and the sun and various other things, then you stop examining things. And when you stop examining things, one becomes ignorant. And so there's it reinforces a habitual tendency to neglect, and thereby ignorance grows. So karmically speaking, it makes one more stupid in the future. Then there's a second issue, is that if one rely on horoscopes, then it will also lead to inaction, because one say, it's my destiny, it's my horoscope, I cannot do any better, because whatever I do is my destiny is laid out in the stars. So I cannot do neither worse nor better. So this leads to inaction. One doesn't try to improve oneself, one doesn't try to improve the world, because it's already laid out by the stars. And this is wrong view. It is not so. The case is not so. The correlation is not so strong. It is extremely weak, extremely weak. So horoscopes, soothsaying, palm reading, all that kind of junk, amulets, put it aside. It doesn't work. It doesn't. You can try to yourself if you have a cancer, a heart attack, or anything like that. May my disease go away by this and that and this and that. It doesn't work like that, huh? Obviously so. And you're not protected against economical ruin or traffic accidents or any other kind of bad destiny either. So I would say on all three accounts, karmically speaking, here and now and in the future, astrology and horoscopes are detrimental, disadvantageous. They're not only neutral, they're disadvantageous. Question 116. Venerable, are the Devas the same as gods? What is the proper translation for Deva? I would say it's not the same as gods, because gods usually are interpreted as, even though some gods even interpret themselves as being creators of everything. And then they are eternal. This is to say that they are not underlying the rule of impermanence. But this all Devas are. Devas basically means shining being, radiant being. All beings are radiant, all kinds of matter which has a temperature higher than the absolute zero. They give out some weak amount of light, usually in the infrared spectrum, so it's not visible to the human eye. It's called black body radiation. But for some beings, the higher you go, the more light comes out. Of the human beings also, if you put a light meter with a very large aperture, a very sensitive light meter upon the skull, then there comes light out the brain. Small amounts of red, also in the visible spectrum. This radiance, in the Buddha's case, was around 5 meters and had 5 colors in the visible spectrum. For the Devas, it is even further, more than that. Some, if you go high up in the Brahma Devas, then they are even made of light. They have no physical matter in our sense. So they are made out of light. And are only their energy is only in the form of radiation. So the energy they are composed of, it does not have any mass. But I think since the Buddha has said it is good to contemplate the Devas, then I think we will take the 31 levels of existence from below, the Buddhist cosmology, from below and up. Start with the hell and up. But first I would like to read out what the Buddha said about this contemplation of the divine beings. He said like that: Bhikkhus and friends, there is one contemplation which, when often practiced and developed, leads to the complete turning away from this captivating world. To detachment, it leads to silencing, to ceasing, to peace, to penetrating knowledge, to enlightenment, and thus to nirvana, the deathless element. Any noble disciple who by progress has understood this Dhamma dwells frequently in this state. What is this unique contemplation? The noble disciple contemplates on the divine beings in this very way. There are the beings on the plane of the 4 great kings. There are the divine beings on the world of the 33, the Tapatimsa. There are the Yama Devas. There are the contented Devas, the Tusita Devas. There are those who are enjoying their own creation, and there are those higher than them that are with the power over others' creations. There are those of the Brahma world, and there are those still far above them. Now, such faith, morality, wisdom, generosity, concentration, and understanding which these divine beings acted upon, and which caused their rebirth on this divine plane after leaving this world. Such good qualities as these are also found in me. When a noble disciple reflects thus, his mind is neither obsessed by any greed, nor by any hate, nor by any confusion. Uplifted and elated is his mind. And this makes the noble disciple gain further deeper understanding of this Dhamma, and thus make the noble disciple delight in the Dhamma. Being delighted, there arises a rapturous joy in him. Being filled with rapture and joy, he is inwardly satisfied, and he becomes quite calm. Being calmed makes him enjoy bliss and happiness, and the mind of a happy one becomes inwardly collected condensed, and concentrated. Of this noble disciple, friends, it is said that among many misguided humans, among this suffering humankind, he lives freed from suffering, and as one who has entered the stream to Nibbana. He cultivates further this contemplation. And when, friends, a noble disciple has reached the fruit of understanding the Dhamma, he dwells often with a calm smile in this state of divine contemplation the Devas and their characteristics. This is from the Anguttara Nikaya 6, number 10. So there is these 31 levels of existence, and there are basically 3 levels. There are the Abhaya, which is the fearful states, which is part of the sensual, the Kama Loka, where being basically runs around seeking sense pleasure. Kama means sense pleasure. So they seek delight in the senses, seek delight in seeing something, hearing something, tasting something, smelling something, touching something, and having particular mental states. So they run around after that. They're completely guided by that. These are the lowest 11 levels. Then above that is the Brahma level, the fine material level. That is probably what dark matter is about. Because this fine material is said to have another kind of, not a material that we currently know of what is, but science says today that there is composed, the mass of it composed something like 80% of the universe. So it's a substantial amount of mass energy out there that the Brahma level is about, or where also there are 16 levels of different beings. And then above this level of this Rupa level, there's the Arupa level, where there's 5 different kinds of conscious beings that has no form. Arupa, formless beings. We will go from below. The first level, the bottom down level, is hell, Niraya, which the Buddha say there is 8 major hells with these 16 minor hells around them. This gives 136 hells in all. They are, one can find them, what he's explained in detail about them in the Majjhima Nikaya number 129 and in the 130, about the kinds of torture that beings are undergoing in these kinds of hell. In hell, lifetime has no certain amount. You can live there for 100,000 years, for 10 years, for 7 minutes, or for the end of this eon, for the end of this kalpa. This is the maximum, though. So 100,000, 100 billion years is probably the maximum, because then the universe collapses, and thereby also it collapse from the bottom. So thereby also the hell levels are exterminated at that point. Devadatta is said to dwell there until the end of this kalpa, because he tried to kill the Buddha, Gautama Buddha, 5 times. Then there is, above level 2 is the animal level, Chirakara Yoni. So there are different kinds of animals. Generally, the animals living in the ocean is regarded as lower, and the small size animals is regarded as lower. So a low state would be a shrimp on the bottom, on 10 kilometers down, living on the bottom in the dark, one of these white shrimps living down there, not seeing anything. This would be the worst. And the highest would be an elephant on planet Earth. The last 2 Buddhas of the next 10 Buddhas were elephants at the Buddha's time. I'll show a small painting of here, the 10 Bodhisattvas of the future Buddhas, which the last 2 are depicted as elephants. Then above this is level 3, is the hungry ghost, the Peta Loka. They cannot get anything to eat. There are also various kinds, 8 different kinds. So they live in almost continuous suffering because they cannot get any sense pleasure, cannot get anything to eat, have a very heavy body, very ugly body, very uncomfortable body that they drag around, very thirsty, very hungry, and also with no limit on their life length. Level 4 is the asuras, or the titans. They are, or the angry demons is a good word, they are engaging in continual conflict, like also humans sometimes do and still do in certain parts of the world, in a continuous conflict, continuous fight with each other, and very little peace. So this is the state of the deprivation, these 4 levels. Then come level 5. It's a happy state. This is a human state, where within the human state, as you know, there can be rich people and poor people, there can be high and low people, and beautiful and ugly. So there are also some diversity within the human level. This is level 5. Above level 5 is level 6. It's the 4 great kings, Maharajika. They are kind of like guardians. They watch the 4 corners. Some of them are not so well off. They also engage in war, especially against the asuras when they want to invade. That's how himsa hemen. So they are kind of like generals, but can also fight. Some of them also like to eat human flesh, is said. So they are not only good guys. The life length is 50 million years, but their time goes 4 times slower than humans. They subjectively experience it the same as we do, but for each level 1 goes up, the time goes 4 times slower. Probably because it's a shell of space-time that is rotating around other shells, and thereby is created this so-called space-time onion. I made a special Dhamma on air on this space-time onion. Go and see the channel. I will insert a link here to the space-time onion. Above this is Yama Devas. They have 2 kinds of job. They are wardens of hell in the nighttime, and then they live a nice life in daytime at the Yama level. Above Devas is the Tusita heaven, the contented Devas. They are level 9. They live in a continual contentment over their significant pleasurable state. It says to be under the Kamaloka, these 11 lower levels of sense pleasure. It is to be said to be the most pleasurable, happy, and content of these levels. It's where all the Bodhisattvas and also Metteyya, he will go before he comes here back to earth and become a Buddha. Then they spend their penultimate life at the Tusita heaven level. Then there are the Devas delighting in creation, Nimanarati Deva. There the Christian God, Jehovah, he resides. And they delight in creation, but they have not created the world. They can create something like you can build a car or write a book or make something in clay, for example, a clay figure or a clay pot. Then they can create. But as they have higher degrees of freedom regarding creation, they can create many other things also, such as clouds, buildings, and so on. But they not created the world per se, de novo. Above them, the last is 1111, is Devas wielding power over the creations of others. So they don't get pleasure. There, Satan, Mara, is residing. He's kind of like a rebel there. Not all of them is evil there, but he is. It's a political motive he has. He says sense pleasure is the only happiness there is. And this he wants to enforce. So this he does, and they can all do that. You have creations means construction. Every human being has mental construction. It's the thoughts and mental states, ideas, and wants, intentions, hopes, and what they do, what they don't do, and what they like, what they dislike. It's mental creations. Then there's the verbal creations and the bodily creations. And they have power over other people's creations. So they can make other people think, say, and do various things. Without these other beings, among those human beings, but also lower devas, they are not aware of it, that there is somebody pushing in the back, somebody else. They cannot make them do it if they are aware of it. If they are aware of these very strange, compulsive thoughts or actions, then they cannot push them to do it. But in many cases they can. And Mara, this evil one, the Buddha has always said that he's the most powerful one in the universe. Even though he's not the highest Devas, he's the most powerful one. Because he really pushes his influence hard. So this means that, for example, they don't enjoy having sex themselves. They enjoy only seeing other people having sex. And since their life length is so extremely long, millions of years, in the order of 250 million years, then they developed some perversions. So they want to push these perversions to other beings. And this one can see on planet Earth. They also delight in, for example, Mara, he delights in other people making war and in conflict and various other kinds. So it's like he regards us human beings as his computer game, you can say, his civilization game. So he's gaming all those, he's as obsessed as gamers are today with his virtual reality game with us humans, like gamers are today with their virtual reality inside the computer. So, and he has much the same powers as gamers have over their gaming worlds. So this is a good way to understand it. But again, it's awareness. One can step out of the influence by being aware of one's own thoughts, being aware of one's own verbal constructions, what one say, what one think conceptually, and being aware of what one is doing in each moment. So hanging on there. This was Kama Loka. Then we go up to the Brahma Loka, the fine material level. Then there's a retinue of Brahma, the Brahma Parisayaya, the ministers of Brahma, Brahma Purohita, and the great Brahma, the Mahabrahmas. They are all dwelling in the first jhana, various degrees of the first jhana. So this means that they don't have one evil will, moment of evil will, of anger, of irritation in their entire life. They are spending their entire life in first jhana, and it's first jhana that has brought them there. So it is first-class meditators that end up on the Brahma level. Can be Buddhist, can also be Hindu, can also be from other religions, but it is basic meditators that has attained the first jhana in the human level and has purified that morality and is in the first jhana at the moment of death, that is reborn at that level. They're very respected by the lower devas. They can do various perceptual tricks. For example, it's said that Mahabrahma, when he comes down and speaks to the Tavahimsa heaven and to Sakka, in Hinduism called Indra, then all at Tavahimsa heaven, where there is these 33 devas, they perceive it as Mahabrahma. He comes and sits and talks to them right by their side. They all perceive that. So he can make himself be at more than one place at the same time. So they all perceive, they're very respectful towards him because he comes close to them and sits face to face with any one of them at the same time. So there you can see again some much more freedom in the degree of influencing other people's perceptions and experiences that we have. All the devas, most of them can form their own shape. They can become a cloud, they can become a mountain, they can shift colors. Even the devatas, female devas, they can, lovers to the male devas, they can usually often change their color. Not all of them can change their form, but to various degrees. But many of them can change their form. So they are made of another kind of matter than we are. We can also, of course, change our form. We can change our, whether we have the arm up or down, but they can change they can become an animal, or an eagle, or a stone, or a cloud, or a light ray, and so forth. So they have significantly more degrees of freedom than human beings have, as a function of their good doings. Above them are the devas of limited radiance, Paritappa devas, the devas of unbounded radiance, Appasara devas, the devas of limited glory, Parisita Suppa devas, the devas of unbounded glory, Supakina deva, the very fruitful devas, Vihafala devas, the unconscious Asanya Satta devas. Just say these are they are all the second jhana or third jhana beings. They are made of light from this point of. They are feeding on joy. They have their body has no weight. They still have a physical body, a physical form, but it's not. It's completely where all of the energy is converted into radiation. So it doesn't have any mass. The unconscious beings has ended up by there. They're saying it's the mind that's the problem. So they are conscious in the moment they come there, and then they're conscious in the moment that they die there. And in the between, in all this millions of years, billions of years actually, they are unconscious. So they have meditated to more than the third jhana, and then they have said to themselves, the mind is the problem. The body is not the problem. And therefore they have become unconscious. Then there are devas not falling away, aviha deva. The untroubled Deva, Attapa Deva, the beautiful Deva, the Suddhasa Deva, and the clear-sighted Deva, the Suddhasi Deva, and the peerless Deva, Akanita Deva. They are from the fourth jhana and upwards. They are non-returners, anagami. So they never come back here to the human state. And also from this, from levels 23 to 27, we are at 27 now, they never fall backwards. They are what we call akanita travelers, non-senior travelers. They only, when they die from one level, they go one level up, and then one level up, and then another level up. Then they will never come back to the human state. So no one of these high Brahma Devas have ever been seen on earth, or no one who have been these high Brahma Devas has ever been seen on earth, of planet Earth. So this says something about how spherical they are. Then there's the last 5 levels, the form levels. There they just in the last 4th jhanas has brought them there when they were either at the human state or in the divine state, where they also meditate, and they dwell on and gain absorption, formless absorption, on the infinitude of space, on the infinitude of consciousness, on nothingness, or level 31, the neither perception nor non-perception. So they are composed entirely of mind and very spread out in space, probably over more than one galaxy, over maybe a galaxy cluster containing thousands of galaxies. So very spread out, but still conscious, but conscious in a very subtle way. These are the levels of the divine beings. Again, the divine beings, the devas, are called so because they are radiant, much more than we are. They are not eternal. They have not reached the end of suffering. They are still under the karmic law. They can do good as well as bad, just as we can. And they will experience the consequence of their actions. However, you come above Brahman level, then there's no ill will. And also there's no sense desire. There's this desire for certain mental states, but not for sensing anything. There are no sexual desire, no craving for food or money or anything like that. But there still is some desire for existence in particular states, among those the first, second, and third, and fourth Rupa Jhana. So they still have some job to do. They still want to be in existence. They still want to be in being in certain states, you can say. And therefore they have not escaped suffering completely. And this also goes for the formless beings. They are still there because they delight in this very subtle formless absorption of, for example, the infinitude of consciousness. So they have not escaped suffering there. And their life length in level 31, in neither perception nor non-perception, they dwell there for 84,000 universal cycles. So this means 84,000 times 100 billion years, in that order. Extremely long time. But there's time goes extremely slow. But their perception is not so extremely slow. But still, it is an immensely long time. So we see roughly 35,000 days pass before we die, if we are 70 years old. when we die, 75 years old. They see 84,000 universes, double as many universes pass. So they, as we see the sun go up and the sun goes down, they see one big bang and one big crunch. In that order. So therefore, of course, when they see that they have extreme equanimity to regarding lower beings and their destiny, because their time goes so slow, and they see these universes come and go all day long, you can say, all week long at least. So it's not a big bang, big crunch is not a big deal for them, really. So this is just to put you in perspective on the Devas, on the divine beings. I put some links to more information on the divine beings. There's a book written by Francis Story, which was an anagarika, an Englishman born around the First World War, lived many years in India and taught there, and also lived in Burma. And it's called Gods and the Universe in the Buddhist Perspectives, Essay on Buddhist Cosmology and Related Subjects by Francis Story. Real publication number 180 and 81. I'll give a link below this video to this publication, where all these issues are touched upon in more detail. Then there is a question 117. If having offered sugar to a Buddha Puja, can one then use it oneself thereafter? One can, but it's not so good. Actually, if giving something to the Buddha, offering something to the Buddha statue, is traditionally done when you invite the Sangha, the Bhikkhu Sangha or the Bhikkhuni Sangha for a dana, for a meal. Then you give first to the Buddha, then you give to the Sangha, and then after the Sangha have eaten and left, usually then the lay people eat. And then the question is whether you can take back, if you've offered sugar to the Buddha statue, whether you can take this sugar back. I would say it's not a good style, because it's like giving something and then taking it back. It's like giving a gift and then saying the next day, please give it back to me. And this means that you are losing the good karmic effects there was of doing the offering in the first place. So what should one do with the Buddha Puja? One should either give it to animals or to those who need it, if there's someone who wants it, or one should destroy it. But not utilizing oneself afterwards. As I said, it's like offering something and thereafter taking it back, thereby annulling the good karmic effect there was of offering it in the first place. Why is there a good karmic effect in giving, in generosity, the first mental perfection, dana parami? It is because it is reducing clinging, which is reducing craving, which is the cause of suffering. So before one can give an object, something one has to practice, just like playing the violin, practice running a bicycle, for example. So giving also is a practice of relinquishing the object. Say, I don't need it. I will rejoice in giving it to somebody else. So one has to relinquish the object before giving it, being able to give it. And it's this relinquishment itself that is kind of like the opposite of clinging. And this is here where the good karmic effect, because this is mirrored back as one will get in the future what one have given out, just minimal multiplied by a factor of 1,000 if you give it to an animal, and by a factor of 1,000 times 1,000 if you give it to a human being. So it's significantly good business to give. One will never lose by it. One will gain by it. And it's also a very happy thing. Just imagine when you give a birthday gift, or when you give at Christmas, and you see that the other beings, they are happy about the object that you have thought out that they would be happy to get, and then they get it, and then they become happy, and then you also become happy. So one rejoices in their happiness. And so giving is good, but of course it takes practice, and it takes some time to be able to relinquish, whether it's food or money or opportunities or status or whatever. It takes time and practice. Usually it's connected with fear. and panic in the mind. I'm losing something. I'm losing something. And that's what one cannot do. Basically, this panic and fear and of losing is a form of greed. It's a form of attachment to the object. It's a form of clinging. And it's causing suffering right there when one cannot give. So this is the first hurdle, the first perfection, the perfection of giving. Question 118 is the last one. Is ploughing and cutting earthworms and drinking water with micro-organisms in it karmically active killing if unintentional? So the question is here, the person he goes and ploughs, or he sits inside his tractor and ploughs, and thereby many worms are cut down, or you go out in the river and take a glass of water and drink it, even though you know that there are microorganisms in it, that they are being killed by coming down in the stomach and blended with the acid down there. So is this active killing or not? If one is unaware of it, no. But usually one is aware of it. So the person he is aware of, anyone who have digged in the earth 1 or 2 times, they have seen these worms wriggling down there when they be cut over. And the suffering they experience with that. And regarding the drinking of water, actually it is so, and the monastery said that you have to have a filter to drink water. And this also, we are having a strainer when we go around in the forest, or we use our robe to drink water through the robe, bending down in the river and then holding the robe up through the mouth, so to filter the water. So this is a part of the Buddhist monastic discipline, the Vinaya, that we're not allowed to drink water just as it is. It has to be filtered first. So these small beings, microscopic beings that are there, multicellular microscopic beings that nevertheless are conscious because they are multicellular, they can be saved and not killed. This is a part of ethics, not to kill, the first precept. So if one is unaware of it and unintentional about it, then it's not karmically active. But if one is aware of it and nevertheless still keep ploughing, or still keep using the water in a way that kills the beings, then it is karmically active killing. Because one accepts knowing and being fully aware that these beings are killed, then one still does the action that kills them, then it's karmically active, because one accepts the killing of these beings. This will be echoed back as shorter life length for oneself and unhappiness, in particular regarding bodily states such as disease, cancer, and so forth. There's a story that illustrates this very finely, and this was a queen at the Buddha's time. King Udena, he had 3 queens, and one was called Samavati. And Samavati had a lot of in her harem, her part of the harem, of the king's harem, she had a lot of friends also with her there, females. Several hundreds, it's said. They were very devout Buddhists. Actually, they made holes in the wall on the harem to look out when the Buddha, he came going back and forth. Then there was another queen that was very jealous, Magandiya. She was very jealous at this chief king, Samavati, and she hated the Buddha because the Buddha has rejected her when he was offered her in his early times as a Buddha in marriage by Magandiya's parents, to a Brahmin pair. And so he didn't want to marry her, even though she fell in love with him at first sight. So she was very angry with him by being slighted by the Buddha in early times. Later on, she was offered to this King Udena and became his second queen. So she was kind of like angry with the Buddha, and she tries to make various tricks to get King Udena to punish Samavati, Queen Samavati, the chief king. So in the end, she persuaded her uncle to set fire to the wooden building where Queen Samavati lived. And this then burned down to the ground, and they were all killed, Queen Samavati and her friends, her consorts, that were also females. And it's then they asked the Buddha, how come this happened? Then he looked back in the future, in their past, and then he saw that at one time they had been also been harems, woman and queen for a king. Then they had been going down to the river to bath, and then coming up from the river, they want to dry their clothes, so they put fire to some bush. And then they saw, after having putting fire to that, they set a solitary Buddha, a Pachika Buddha, inside the bush and meditating. And so they become very embarrassed. They thought he would be killed, but he did. When you're in the fourth jhana, then you cannot be touched by fire. So this was completely unreasonable. But nevertheless, they want to hide their mistake. So they took firewood and more grass and put on the fire in order for him to burn away. So he would vanish. And that was the karmically active. The first thing that they put fire on the bush, they didn't see him. This was not a mistake. But the second thing, that they collected more firewood to cover up their first mistake, this was karmically active. And this you often see beings that they make a small mistake, then they want to cover up the first mistake, then they make an even bigger mistake, typically lies. So you want to cover up a small lie, then you tell a bigger lie. And to cover up that lie, you have to make an even more fraud, and so on. So it's kind of like accelerates. So what was small negligent thing in the start ended by being a karmic catastrophe, like in this case. So they were burnt down. They are interesting from many points of view because they had a slave woman called Kuchutara, and why she was a slave woman and why could she remember the Dhamma so well? She went every day to the Buddha, and then she heard him speak. Then she went back to Queen Samavati, which was not allowed to leave King Udena's court and his palace. And then she told what he had said. And this out of that came a book called Itivuttaka, which is this small one, Thus Have I Heard, which is included in the Itivuttaka. And which is a very neat collection. She became a streamer-intent by her hearing the Buddha the first time. She came to hear him every day. She got 8 gold pieces or 8 pieces of money from King Samavati. But then she kept 4 of them for herself. She was then sent out to buy flowers. And then one day she heard the Buddha speak, and then she became a streamer-intent. And then she went back to Queen Samavati and told about her own deception that she had kept half of the money. But then she also told what the Buddha had said. And then King Samavati treated her like her mother, and then say, please come back and tell us about what the Buddha say day after day. You go and buy flowers, and you hear what the Buddha say, and then you come back. And she had kind of like a photographic memory. She was a hunchback and a slave woman of this Queen Samavati. It is said that she could remember why she was a hunchback, because she has seen a particular Buddha which also has a slightly hunchback. And then she has put over a robe over herself, and then she walked after him, kind of like ridiculing him. And then she became a hunchback herself in a later life. Why she was very good to remember, later in another existence, she met also 5 solitary Buddhas, which was offered rice gruel, which was very hot. And then she took some ivory rings and gave them so they could put down their hot food on these rings before eating it. And because of this offering of these 5 ivory rings, that she was extremely clever and had this photographic memory. And she was said by the Buddha to be the Akasavaka, the foremost disciple in remembering the Dhamma. Bahusota is one who has heard much. Among the lay disciples, this slave woman was the foremost, Kuchutara. And as I said, this Itivuttaka, I give a link below, Thus Have I Heard. It's a whole book that actually is told by her to this queen. A whole book. Not a big book, but nevertheless a whole book. All the verses, they start the same way. Thus have I heard the Buddha say. Buttam etam bhagavata. Thus have I heard the Buddha say. This is what she was telling the queen. So this is her story of life. It was later said that Markandeya, she was scrutinized or interviewed by King Udena about this. So King Udena, he came back and then saw that his chief king and the whole building was gone, was embers, smoking embers. And then he said, how good that somebody has burned this foolish woman. She has annoyed me for a long, long time. And then his other queen, Queen Markandeya, he think, he's happy by this my rival's death. I can talk about it. And then she proudly went forward and told that it was her who had arranged with her uncle to burn down the. And then the king said, splendid, splendid. You invite your uncle and all your family inside the king's court. And then she did next day. Then he arrested them and buried them to the ground. So their body was and head was above the ground. Then he covered with the grass and then put fire onto it. And it was said that he tortured this Markandeya lady by stripping out pieces of flesh from her body and then frying it in an oil pan like a piece of bread and then feeding her to herself. So very, very cruel punishment she got from that action. So karma, evil karma, papa karma, and instant echo back as immense suffering, immense pain. 49 minutes and 31 seconds. I think this is enough for today. I'll give a link to the free versions of the Itivuttaka, Thus Have I Heard, collection of texts, which is very interesting because they are fairly short, but also fairly deep and very well written. Lastly, I like to say thank you again to those who have donated food, to the regular supporters and to the occasional supporters that keep these videos flowing from this hermitage. Thank you. May much merit be yours. As they say here in Sri Lanka, Bohoma Pin. Bohoma good. May Pin merit. May your karmic echo be good. May your future be elevated much. Thank you for your attention also. Namo Tasso Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Worthy, honorable, and perfectly self-enlightened was the blessed Buddha. Remember to click subscribe down there in the right corner. It's down there. If you want to hang on all the way home to Nibbana, the deathless element. And have a nice and noble day. Thank you. You heard Bhikkhu Samahita from the Cypress Hermitage on the Knuckles Mountain, Bambarella, Central Hill Country, Sri Lanka. Please subscribe to the Google group Buddha Direct and visit the website whatbuddhasaid.net. May all beings become thus happy thereby. Thank you. Namo Tasso Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Worthy, honorable, and perfectly self-enlightened was the blessed Buddha.